Good morning, church. Let me start off by reading a passage from 1 John. 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. This passage sets up a contrast. It's actually one of many contrasts that John uses in this book, including light versus darkness, the children of God versus the children of the devil, the Spirit of God versus the spirit of Antichrist, love versus hate, and in this passage in particular, we see the love of the world versus the love of the Father. Obviously, we're called to love God, and this is important for many reasons, but this passage points out that the love of the world ends in destruction, whereas the love of God and His will brings life without end. For that reason alone, I think we should pay close attention. The world, and by world here, I don't necessarily mean a synonym for earth or creation, but something like the world that has been stained by sin or the system of sin and Satan that opposes God. The world encourages the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, all of which set themselves up against God. Before I go any further, let me define each part of this evil triad. I'm going to paraphrase Charles Ryrie, James DeYoung, and Zane Hodges when explaining these. The first is the lust of the flesh. The Greek word for lust can also be translated craving. So when we talk about the lust of the flesh, we can speak of the cravings of the flesh. Further, this denotes a physical appetite that has somehow gone wrong. This includes improper sexual desires, but it can also mean any physical desire which has been twisted by sin. A lust of the flesh could be gluttony, laziness, drunkenness, and we could probably add lots more to that list. The second is the lust of the eyes. This points to our tendency to covet and to possibly excessively acquire things. We have a tendency to think that happiness is just one more purchase away. We might say something like this: if I just had a larger house, if I just had a newer car, if I just had a little bit more money in my bank account, then I could be happy. We make things even worse when we look at others and begin to think, if only I had what they had, things would be good for me. The third is the pride of life. This is the idea of arrogance in relation to ourselves and the things that we possess. It can also be a boasting in the things of this world as the greatest good. It is elevating ourselves and what we possess to a level that is for God alone. These things should not exist in our lives. So my question is this: how do we, who still struggle with sin, keep from falling prey to the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life? Ultimately, we overcome sin by walking in the Spirit, and that should be primary in our minds and hearts. The good in any of us and our ability to combat sin is from God. This is clearly seen in Galatians chapter 5, verse 16. However, secondarily, we can see wisdom through church history by implementing certain biblical practices to help us become more like Jesus. When it comes to the lust of the flesh, we might consider fasting. That is, when it comes to the desires of the flesh, we have to learn to say no. If we can say no to food, then the Lord can use that to fortify our wills to better obey and serve Him. When it comes to the lust of the eyes, we might consider giving something of value away. It could be money, it could be time, or it could be something else. When we learn to give up something of value, then our hearts can be reoriented to things of eternal value rather than things that will pass away. When it comes to the pride of life, we should turn to prayer. The pride of life places value on self and the things of earth. Prayer places value in God Himself. We take our eyes off of ourselves and the things that we own, and we put them on God and His infinite perfection. Prayer, among other things, reorients us towards God. Walking in the Spirit is a non-negotiable. However, I encourage you to think about fasting, giving, and prayer as ways that God has given us so that we can better combat sin. I'll be praying for you. Keep praying for me. I'll see you next week.